It's a great day for a swim. It's event number 5 for the individuals. Thank you so much for being with us, everybody, here at day 3 of Wodapalooza. I am Sean Woodland alongside Bill Grundler, Chris Hinshaw in the booth as well, and Jamie Hagia is down on the competition field. Event 5 is row, swim, and then run.
I love these triathlon setups. It's going to be able to push all the athletes. And again, we're in the water. We're at Wodapalooza. You got to get in the water, and we get to do that today.
And Event 5 is presented by Tier, and this is the way that it will play out. The athletes will start on the rowers, and then when they are done, they will work their way through the facility here at Bayfront Park. They will then enter the water, swim 250 meters, hang a left, and work their way up the ramp into the Bayside Park. And as we saw with the women, if you're first out of the water, you will go to treadmill number 1, second will go to 2, and so on and so forth.
I love the setup of this, how we go from 2 different venues and kind of make our way through the park. So the fans out there that are here in Miami get to decide, all right, where do I want to hang out and watch? Do I want to watch him row? Do I want to see him get in the water? Or do I want to see him finish?
And here are your overall standings after 4 events. Pat Vellner starting to separate himself from the pack. He has a pretty good lead on Alexander Caron. Phil Toon, though, just 3 points back of Caron for second place. It's a 27-point lead that Vellner has on Caron. And Pat Vellner last night really showed that he may just be in a class by himself.
Well, I mean, I think generally speaking, yes, but every time we've had a water event, this is where he seems to have a stumble. Now, they have reduced the distance in the water isn't very far, but I want to see if he's going to be able to mitigate that that swim just because it's shorter.
Let's go to the keys to this long event.
It is long. That is totally true. However, we have a shorter element of the swim. So swimmers unite. Like how much do you think this swim is really going to matter? It's not very long, Chris.
It's not very long, but I guarantee Vellner is thinking about it. And the thing he's thinking about is, should I really push my row so I can get that clean water? For him, that's what he needs. If he is in a group, it's going to create more disruption, more anxiety, and it's going to slow him down. The question really is does he want to take a high risk and go after like the Jason Hoppers?
30 minutes on the clock.
Dallin Pepper is on the right of your screen. He currently sits in 4th place, and on the left, that's Phil Toon, who had the overall lead at one point during this competition. Toon, again, just 3 points back of Alexander Caron, 30 back of Pat Vellner for the top spot in the standings.
You know, with Phil Toon, I just want to wonder, since he hasn't made it into the big spotlight, what does he feel like being up there at the top? Like, you're not supposed to be right next to Pat Vellner. He's the 2nd best in the world. Same thing with Dallin Pepper. Young athlete, yes, he's been to the games, and yes, he's been the champ at the games, but that's in the teen division. These are the big kids. So when you're up there and you see your name up on that leaderboard with all of those famous people, there's a lot of pressure there.
It's a lot of pressure, and we saw that pressure on Dallin Pepper at West Coast Classic. Here he was in the top 3 for all 3 of the date, and then all of a sudden it was like, right when it came down to it, it was like when the pressure was at its peak. And that's the hardest part for a teenager that is turning individual.
And remember, Dallin Pepper, if you take a look at his right ankle, he fell off the box last night. He has that thing heavily taped.
Is he gonna feel any sort of an ankle issue when he's doing the run? Is there gonna be more stress on his ankle because of the barefoot running?
You know, Bill, when I did Ironman, I had all 10 of my toenails fall off in my shoe, and I didn't feel it.
That's a pretty ugly picture.
I didn't feel it. I don't think he's going to feel it. I think he'll feel it later, but right now, no, I don't. I mean, you know this. For all the things you've done, you don't feel those things when all of a sudden it's 3, 2, 1, go.
For the most part, it looks like all the athletes have shoes on. There is someone out there with bare feet.
To me, like we talked about earlier, it will be interesting, the athletes that really want to take a risk right now. You've got to make a move. If you want to get on that podium, you want to get in the top 5 or the top 10, you got to go now. And the question really is are we going to see that from these bubble athletes?
Scott Pancick is back competing as an individual after, quote-unquote, retiring at the CrossFit Games. He currently sits in 14th place overall, coming off an 8th place finish in event number 4, and trails his brother Spencer by 10 points for 13th. And if you don't think there isn't a little battle going on between the Pancick brothers right now,
then you don't have brothers.
And the twins are right next to each other, and hopefully we can get a number off the shoulders, because that is honestly the only way I'm going to be able to tell them apart.
And they didn't get the memo to have one of them wear the neon shorts like they had last night. They're not helping us out here.
I ran into them at the athlete briefing, all 3 of them, and I was talking with Scott, and I, we've seen Scott, and we've, talked to Scott over the years, and I have never seen him more relaxed. And I asked him about his training, and he says, you know what? I'm training significantly less than I ever have. I'm relying on the foundation that I've created over the years. And he says, you know what? I'm creating performances that are still where I used to compete.
Yeah.
It's just that his energy level, his enthusiasm is back what it used to be. I don't see him retiring based upon the conversation I had.
Nice little smile as he gets into that row.
Oh, he is really happy right now.
2,500-meter row for the men. Jason Hopper is on the left. Cole Sager is on the right. 2 bigger guys who can pull on the rower, and Hopper pulling a 138 right now. Cole Sager is in 5th place overall, quietly. He took a tie for 30th in event 3, but everything other than that has been inside the top 7.
It's the way Cole seems to work in everything. He doesn't like to be the flash and dash guy. He's just like the silent assassin hanging there in the shadows, pops out when he needs to. And I think that this will be a fun race between these two. Now Jason Hopper, he's been up, he's been down. He's been back up, he's been back down again. I think, Chris, we were talking about this earlier. I think Hopper is going to be, this is going to be a good event for him, especially once you get him to that air runner, because he's a big guy that can put a lot of power on that rower. And again, I don't think this swim is going to be that short for him.
He's already through 1,200 meters and counting, or almost a 1,300.
I agree with you. I think that this is a good event for Jason. The question really is that swim. I mean, he had 0 swimming background 3 weeks out of the CrossFit Games this year. 0. But he has adapted really well. He is athletic. But this row, I mean, pulling at a 138 on an air rower is a great, great pace. It's a great pace. Also, he can run a mile in 5 minutes and 10 seconds. So if he can get through that swim in decent position, he's going to be a contender.
Those are big strokes he's taking. See Cole Sager up in the front. Look at the cadence difference between Cole's stroke and then Jason's stroke right behind him. Jason, big, long, driving, powerful pulls, and he's tall versus Cole.
Phil Toon, who at one point led this competition, currently sits in 3rd place overall. He's only 3 points back of Alexander Caron for 2nd. Toon had a great start, a 6th, a 2nd, a 2nd, but then last night he got derailed a little bit, sitting in 12th. In 12th place finish, I should say.
And it was great when we were talking about when Jamie interviewed Phil Toon when he had his win, and he had a very psycho killer answer about it. I love that, very competitive thing. So here we are, we line these guys up face to face. All right, I see you over there, Pat. I'm going to take you out. And so I want to see the eyeballs going back and forth between these guys. I mean, obviously they're a little bit too far to have any kind of trash talking, but you can definitely mad mug for sure.
Oh, they see each other for sure. I mean, what a setup that they put them right across from one another like that.
6 minutes in on this initial 2,500-meter row. After this, it's on to the 250-meter swim, and then the final 2,000 meters on the air runner. Judges' hands will go in the air when their athlete is inside 100 meters to go. There's Tim Paulson, who comes in 7th place overall. Another bigger guy who can really do some damage on a rower.
And he has a lot of experience, especially in the elite field. He's going to have some solid composure.
2 guys who used to make their way on frozen water, Paulson and Sam Cormier, former hockey players. Cormier right next to Paulson.
You can see Tim is really utilizing his hips and his drive and trying to minimize as much of the arms as possible. I think, you know, if it was just a row event, you're going to bring your arms into it a lot more, but you want to save your arms for that swim a little bit more. Really utilize that hip drive. He's got these big, strong legs. Oh, my goodness. You know.
But as we were talking about earlier, on this rower, if you have the power, you have the strength, you should reduce your stroke rate and focus on a lot of pressure on that handle. You know, the difference between pulling at 25 strokes a minute versus 35 strokes a minute, if you have that strength, that power, you take the 25. And that's where these tall athletes like a Hopper, like a Cole Sager, they're going to have advantage. Like Cole looks really good right now.
Jason Hopper is getting close to the finish of his 2,500 meter row here. Took a look at his monitor earlier, and he had a really good pace, and now his judge's hand is in the air. So inside 100 meters to go for Jason Hopper as he looks to be the first man to make his way into the water here. Hopper 6th place overall, only trails Cole Sager, the man sitting right next to him, by 2 points for 5th. Now more judges' hands springing up.
So I'm watching Vellner's judge, and I don't see anything yet. That concerns me a little.
So Hopper is done, and he will make his way to the water. James Sprague's judge's hand is in the air as well. Sprague is a man to watch in this event. He has quite an extensive swimming background, and he's rowed a little bit as well in college.
So his goggles were fogged up. That's why he put them on and took them off.
I would take them off too.
Willie George is among the men to get off.
What a great transition. Here. Going downhill like that allows them to get their composure back, breathing under control, wide space, so you're not bumping people.
Yeah, but the other thing that's really interesting is look at the distance that we have between Jason Hopper, who's really going, versus the rest of the people.
As we watch the men enter the water here, let's send it down to Jamie Hagia.
Jason Hopper was the first one here. He just cool, calm, and collectedly took off his shoes, threw them into the bin, head on down that ramp. And from what we know from swimming events at the games, the ocean in Carson, the lake in Madison, it was a wider ramp or a wider entrance, but with this narrow ramp heading down, you definitely want to get out in the front. From experience, if you're in the back, you can get punched, kicked, hit on accident, maybe not on accident, but you do want to get in front. That's going to give you a better chance to get on one of those rowers closer to the finish line.
Thank you, Jamie. Jason Hopper, the first man in the water. The man behind him in those blue and red shorts you saw earlier, that was James Sprague. So keep an eye on him. He's got a really good chance to reel in Jason Hopper on this portion of the event. And we also saw Pat Vellner among the pack of men getting into the water behind those two.
And I'll tell you, the women's field seemed to have a lot more swim technique than the men's field. You can see some of these athletes breathing on both sides, not putting their head like timing it like a third stroke, but every stroke. We see that. We see heads coming up very high. Even Jason Hopper, you were worried about his swim stroke originally, Chris, when he hopped in the water. The first thing I saw was, yes, he was spotting with his head coming up, but his mouth was so wide open. And that to me is someone that's like, I don't say gasping for air, but definitely oxygen is going to be an important thing for them, so they aren't as comfortable as you would think they would be.
Yeah, and what's unfortunately for him is that the longer he has his head out of the water to take that breath, it forces his hips down, which is going to make him go slower.
And James Sprague has moved ahead of Hopper. Sprague is at the bottom of your screen. Again, the blue-red shorts that he is wearing. So no surprises, he does have that extensive swimming background. Jason Hopper apparently went the wrong direction. So Sprague 15th place overall. Best finish was a 3rd in event 4 last night. 229 total points for Sprague. So he is very much alive for a spot inside the top 10 right now.
That water looks calm to me. I mean, for being the ocean, it's relatively calm.
And there's Hopper on the left side of your screen. You just saw him. He was just trying to get himself back on track.
Went straight out to the right. He's going crossing the Atlantic.
You're going the wrong way.
Chris, what's the difference in the stroke between a open water stroke and versus a pool stroke?
The key really is it's your ability to sight. And a lot of people think that when they have to sight, when the hand enters, so it's normally when you sight, what it is it's this, let's say you breathe on the right-hand side. And when that right arm hits the water, what's going to happen is that you're going to feel that pressure on and you're going to sight. A lot of people keep their head out of the water the entire time. That's the mistake.
And look at that. You can see these athletes are already getting out of the way. They aren't tracing down, so they're not spotting correctly.
Right. So their job is to find that blue buoy and go around that blue buoy.
And the hard part is if you get the lead person who goes off track, all the lemons go with them.
You saw that. A couple athletes had to course correct there heading into that final buoy as James Sprague has now made the left turn. There's one more buoy to go around, and then someone there on the right side. Cole Sager, I think, is one of those athletes. He's got to adjust as well. So guys getting way off track here on this 250-meter swim, and they're going to have to do some extra work here.
You know, I see a lot of that sort of misdirection like that. You get a little bit of bump of the swell, a little bit of the current, but then also they're overextending their arms. So they're thinking that because, you know, if you have nice flat water, you can have a nice extended roll. But, you know, when you get into open water, you have to shorten up that stroke a little bit so that you aren't getting off track. You don't have all these other variables that you would normally have to deal with. So,
yep. One of the keys is that you need to know, like, we all drift to one side or the other when we swim. We have a strong side and a weak side. So what side do you drift to? And when you sight a buoy, you need to know, do you drift to the right or the left? And so I have a lot of swimmers, what they do is they jump in the water and you'll close your eyes and you'll take 25 strokes with your eyes closed, and what side do you drift on? And that's your tendency. You either pull to the right or you pull to the left, and it helps you with your sighting. The key is you don't want to lose sight of the buoys, and what we're seeing with these athletes is they're losing sight of that buoy, and that's a basic skill that they should have.
James Sprague getting set to make his way out of the water. He's a two-time teen competitor at the CrossFit Games. He was 4th in 2017 as a teenager and then 5th in 2019. He's only 19 years old. The beard is deceiving on him. This has a potential to get a little violent right here. It's not on purpose, but just limbs and legs flailing. You might take one in the kisser.
Oh, it happens. Sometimes it's not on accident.
Well, that's one of those things that if you're not a strong swimmer and you get in there, it's instant panic.
Sprague will be the first man out.
Is that Jay?
Self and Poulin behind him. So those are your top three.
That really was, by Taylor Self, a great swim. He made up a ton of distance.
It's an amazing swim. Yeah, it was under 5 minutes.
So from left to right, it's James Sprague, Taylor Self, Matt Poulin, and that is Saxon Pancick, who is in 4th. Now here comes Jason Hopper. So not bad considering everything he had to deal with. And Vellner right behind him. So Pat Vellner in a great spot right now.
Yeah, that's a great position for him to be in. And we talked about where Hopper was and what Hopper's going to do on the run.
Amazing.
But Pat Vellner, same thing. I mean, he's not, when you put him in endurance events, he does great. So he just had to get through that, and that's a great position for him to be in.
So far, these are the men who have gotten out of the water. Sprague, Self, Poulin, Saxon Pancick, Gervais, Sager, Vigneault, Kaike Cerveny, Tyler Christoffel, Spencer, Dallin Pepper, Pat Vellner, and Davidson are all out of the water. I'm not sure if that's, I don't know if Jason Hopper, there's something running down the right side of his face. I don't know if that's just maybe some seaweedy collector. If that, hopefully that's not blood. Now Tim Paulson coming out in the white swim cap.
Vellner had a great swim. That was a good swim in a crowd.
Now Phil Toon is among the group of men getting ready to get out. He's the fourth man in that pack. Lucas Upnieks is in there as well. Alexander Caron was out of the water as well, but he was way back towards the end there. But the good news for Carone is that he's ahead of Phil Toon right now. As Uldis Udnik's almost slipped. There's Phil Toon making the turn. Now 2,000 meters.
That would be discouraging. That would be discouraging if I'm Toon and I'm coming in and I'm looking at where everybody, it's like, whoa, I have a long way to go. I've got to do some catching up. And because there's a lot of people between where he is and where he wants to be.
Remember, the 2022 Open is just around the corner. You can register now, and to do that, you head to open.crossfit.com. James Sprague on the left, first man out of the water. Taylor Self is next to him, and Matt Poulin is in third. And Saxon Pancick, the fourth man. He's on the far right side of your screen.
Sprague looks great. Nice and long, nice and tall.
I completely agree with you. It looks amazing. Really good. I mean, he doesn't need to look at the monitor, but other than that, it looks really good.
One more look at your overall leader and your overall standings. Pat Vellner, 376 points, 27 points up on Alexander Carone. Jason Hopper right next to him. Hopper in 6th place overall coming into this event. Dallin Pepper is there between Hopper and Saxon Pancick. Actually, I believe that's Spencer Pancick. I can tell by their shorts. That is Spencer.
Now, it's interesting looking at Pat Vellner in the green right there, Jason Hopper right next to him. Both these guys came in at about the same time. Now, Jason came out, or got into the water first, looked very comfortable coming off the rower, but had to do a lot of work. Pat Vellner, we were worried about, like, okay, what's that going to do to him, that swim? And he looks much more comfortable. He didn't work nearly as hard as Jason Hopper did. Now, Jason's trying to play catch-up. That's why I saw him looking over at Pat's screen just to see, like, okay, am I on base? Because I feel like crap. Because he looks like he's not feeling very comfortable right now.
We mentioned Dallin Pepper during the row with that tape on his ankle. You can see it flapping around there. And he took a spill last night on the box stepovers. So hopefully that ankle is okay, heavily taped, and you got to think he's maybe feeling that a little bit right now.
Yeah. Dallin is a speed, strength, power athlete, and that type of athlete, 2,000 meters. This is a grind. This is going to be a grind for him. But let's face it, this is not the teen Dallin Pepper that we used to see.
Right.
This is the grown man.
Yeah, and to just remind people, he did get out of the water well ahead of the two men in front of him in the overall standings, both Phil Toon and Alexander Carone. So Dallin Pepper has an opportunity to make up some ground on them and possibly put himself inside the top 3. There's Alexander Carone, who is the man in 2nd place with 349 points. He was about 7 spots behind Pat Vellner getting out of the water.
Now, when I'm looking, this is what we're talking about. Like, do you see someone in what? How would you fix their form? He looks to me to be a little bit overextended. Is that a muscular thing, a musculature thing, or is that a training thing, or just hasn't been corrected? I mean, what do you see when you look at that?
So what I'm seeing is, like, you can see like that sway back is right, and it's almost like he's getting ready to sit down in a chair. We see this a lot with people that work a lot and they sit in a chair, is that they have this bend at the waist. And part of the problem with that is that they're never actually opening up their hip and taking advantage of what the hip flexor can provide in the movement of running. And so what he's doing is he's pulling his foot off the ground way too soon. And he's unfortunately shortchanging his stride length. And on an air runner, especially if you're tall, it's an advantage to use that slope to ride it down.
There is Phil Toon in the middle of your screen. He's trying to chase down Alexander Carone for 2nd place. And Toon is in the back row of runners, so he was in the back half of this field getting out of the water. There's where he stands right now, just 3 points back of Carone for 2nd place. And everybody on that graphic we just saw got out of the water ahead of him right now. So Phil Toon has some work to do some damage control. Your leaders are on the bottom of your screen. That's James Sprague now on the left and Taylor Self next to him. And then Matt Poulin is on the right, followed by Saxon Pancick.
I see you over there counting, Chris. You're counting steps and breathing. I can see you over there. I see you doing what you're doing.
I can't help myself. I can't help myself.
Hand in the air for Taylor Self.
Yeah, because his stride frequency, he was flying. Flying. I mean, you could tell he's making his move for the finish.
Taylor Self, 16th place overall coming into the event, and he is off. And Taylor Self is going to pick up his best finish since the opening event. He will win event 5, his second finish inside the top 2. Now James Sprague is trying to outrace Matt Poulin. Sprague is going to come in second. Matt Poulin looks to be the next man to finish. Hand in the air for Cole Sager.
Wow.
And now Matt Poulin is off, and he will take third. Poulin looking to stay inside the top 10. Hand in the air for Saxon Pancick as well.
They're all sub 7 minutes.
And
Incredible.
It's going to be Sager ahead of Saxon across the finish line. Unable to see who those other 2 athletes were coming in. Here comes Jason Hopper and Sam Cournoyer, and not sure if Cournoyer was able to hold him off, and now Alex Vigneault is across. Pat Vellner is just about done, and this will be big for Vellner because he came in with a 27-point lead over Alexander Caron, a 30-point lead over Phil Toon. Here comes Spencer Pancick. And Vellner is going to widen his lead on those 2 and really have a stranglehold on the top spot in the overall standings.
Colin Pepper's doing great. I mean, he should be pleased with this performance.
Dallin Pepper is off as he is in. Now here comes Scott Pancick. I believe that was Jeremy Vigneault who came across behind Scott Pancick. Now more men getting set to finish up their runs. Here's Drew Wayman. Now 5 minutes to go before we hit the 30-minute time cap. Taylor Self is your event winner, followed by James Sprague and Matt Poulin. There's Alexander Caron. So Caron, as Paulson is in, is going to stay ahead of Phil Toon. But Pat Vellner is really going to widen his lead in the overall standings here.
And Phil Toon's done. Yeah.
Phil Toon is making the turn around the corner to come in. Phil Toon started the competition with a 6th and then back-to-back second-place finishes. And then in the Bayside Chipper, he had a 12th. And then this likely will be his worst finish of the event.
And I swear that it's like insult to injury. If you're last out of the water, you're in that second lane, and then you have to make that turn around when you're all wet and tired.
But Bill, you got to admit, all those air runners sitting on that floor, I mean, that's incredible. Like, this event and who came up with it, it's a creative event, it's an amazing test, but it's also a show for the audience.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, going from one venue to another venue, it's a solid event.
Anthony Davis is the last man on the floor. He does have an event win under his belt. He took event number 3, the MIA Bar Complex. And he has 3 minutes to go to get inside the 30-minute time cap. James Sprague is there trying to help him out. And you mentioned the setup here. We talked about it earlier, but we'll do it again. The volunteers and the staff and everybody who works so hard to put on this event, usually they don't get enough credit. They do a fantastic job, and regardless of where we are and what event we're watching, the people who give their time to come set these things up, they are the reason these things happen. So thank you to all the volunteers and staff who work so hard to put on these events.
Yeah, absolutely. They could have been one of the people up there in the stands getting to hang out and enjoy and just kind of watch, but they chose to watch it from the inside, put themselves there down on the floor.
Final 100 meters for Anthony Davis. Cole Sager trying to get the crowd behind Anthony Davis, and Cole is known to do this. It's one of the reasons why he has won the Spirit of the Games award in his career. And Davis is done, and he will make it inside the 30-minute time cap.
That's amazing. Sean, as you mentioned, the volunteers, I mean, this event's been going on since 8:45 this morning. The fact that it has run on time so seamlessly is a testament to what this organization has done. It's really remarkable. Really remarkable.
And with Anthony Davis crossing the finish line, the men are now done with event 5. Taylor Self, who had a great start to the event, who finished second in event number 1, picks up his first win here of Wodapalooza.
And, you know, we talked about how important or unimportant the row is going to be, but Jason Hopper did exactly what he needed to, which was use that big, powerful body of his and get as much length and power on each one of those strokes to do some damage, because the swimming is not going to be his forte. So he got himself well out ahead of the pack. However, we saw everyone kind of getting off track as they got in the water. James Sprague made a nice jump to the front. And, you know, we knew he was going to be the good swimmer, but we weren't really expecting Taylor Self to be so close. Taylor Self hopped up right next to him, and then you could just see him settling in, and it was a nice race to watch those 3 guys. You have Sprague up there at the top, Self with the red beard, Paulson right next to him, but then Self just opened up and really made that distance firsthand in the air and was able to finish in that first spot. He had an amazing finish and looked so comfortable as he came across that finish line.
Event win for Taylor Self, and he is with Jamie Higia.
Taylor, you were able to pick up your first event win of the weekend. What was it about those movements that made this event so great for you?
I've done a lot of swimming. I wasn't a swimmer. My sister dove in college, so I spent a lot of time around the water. You know, I'm pretty good on the rower, so I just knew I could hold an uncomfortable pace, kind of stay in the hunt, not get caught up in the middle, getting into the swim. I noticed the ramp was pretty small, so I didn't want to be caught in the middle of the pack, and then do a lot of running too, so I knew I could get on the runner and hold a pretty uncomfortable pace and just, you know, kind of keep it level through about 1,600 and then pick it up pretty hard for the last 400. But yeah, it felt good.
You were 2 spots away from qualifying in your first year of competing for the CrossFit Games. What does this do for your confidence?
I knew I was good at this, so, you know, it's good for the confidence to get an event win. There are a lot of things I got to work on to get better to be good enough to qualify, so that's just all I'm focused on, just trying to get better at the things I need to work on.
And in this final run, you were in second behind James Sprague coming into that run. That final push, what was going through your mind, and how did you feel in that final sprint?
I knew I can push hard. I didn't know how fast he was going, but I just looked at my boss was telling me to go hard, and you know, I just have a lot of people here that care a lot about me, so it helped having them in the stands pushing me hard.
Thank you so much.